Deal of thought, Grandpa.
Here is a bulletin from CBS News. In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade in downtown Dallas. The first reports say that President Kennedy has been seriously wounded by this shooting. More details just arrived. These details about the same as previously. President Kennedy shot today just as his motorcade left downtown Dallas. Mrs. Kennedy jumped up and grabbed Mr. Kennedy. She called, "Oh no," the motorcade sped on. United Press says that the wounds for President Kennedy perhaps could be fatal. Repeating, a bulletin from CBS News, President Kennedy has been shot by a would-be assassin in Dallas, Texas. Stay tuned to CBS News for further details.
That there is one of the great moments in history, like Pearl Harbor and 9/11, things that just stick with you. I myself have remembered none of those events I've just stated, including the one I showed you the news clip of, the assassination of JFK. I was born before 9/11, but I was like 2 when it happened, so no memory. But they're all important historical events, but they also have something else. They were all reported on near instantaneous, each one a bit more quicker than the previous one. Pearl Harbor, pretty much the next day. JFK's assassination, within a few minutes. No, about 10 minutes a day, I think it was, for CBS, just because they had to give, because they used the radio studio to report on it until they could get their cameras ready. So, just something to think of. And then 9/11, you had instantaneous reporting. Actually, really, there was coverage for the first attack was still being reported on when the second one occurred, just showing how instantaneous coverage was. And that was before nowadays, where things can be reported within mere seconds of them happening. The news has sped up, but I'm not going to be talking about that, even though I have. Rather, historians and journalists are the same, except for time. And yes, I did kind of talk about time a little bit already, but more so than anything, it's the time of the stuff they deal with. Historians deal with stuff that have already come to pass. It is over with. Journalists report on what is actively going, or the immediate past. Yes, you'll get some journalists also doing more historian type looks at the past, but main things journalists and historians are different on is what they're covering. One covers past events, the other covers current events. They are very similar. They should also be using the same code of ethics too. Objectivity, let the event speak for itself, but at the same time you don't want to be, the word I'm looking for is covering things up. You gotta state what is so, but you want to try to be as objective as possible, even though you will be biased. And I think that's an important thing. Both journalists and historians should strive to tell the truth. To the best of their ability, they should admit their biases and learn to work with them. I've been thinking about this for months now, and I've only finally decided to do a video on it, and I know I haven't posted a video in a long time. I have a plan to remedy that, but I'll get to that later. Journalists and historians should essentially be living by the same, or working by the same code of ethics. No, you report the facts, you are as objective as possible, you let the event speak for itself. But another small difference is sources. Historians generally have a more distant relation to their sources, especially their primary sources, unless they had to conduct an interview to create an oral history to get the sources they needed. Journalists create sources for historians to use. Think about it. And for historians, as I'm getting a degree in history, so I'm being educated in the process of doing history, that primary sources in history, the the bread and butter really of history are are journals, news coverage, artifacts, videos, like anything that was created with the event in question. That's a primary source. And secondary sources can become a primary source if you look at the secondary source for in terms of looking at how people interpreted what was going on. Kind of gets kind of confusing there, but journalists, they create the news articles. Journalists create primary sources. Not the only ones, but they do create them. It's an interesting relationship between the two professions, which you think are so different. Most colleges, history is its own separate department, and journalism is tucked underneath either English or communications, or one or the other. But they're actually very similar. They need to use their sources. They can't make things up. They need to be objective and truthful. And of course they got to work to overcome their own biases. And they need to let what has happened, what is happening, speak for itself. I feel like the news as a whole is not always letting the current events speak for themselves. They're putting their own spin on it, and not just reporting the facts. Granted, just reporting the facts can get boring, so you can understand why they do commentary. And speaking of that, I am planning on doing a new video series where each day, hopefully, probably won't work, but I'll take one news article, I'll read it with you guys. It won't be a live stream, but I'll read it with you guys, so morning, mid-afternoon, and then for the evening put it out. So it'll be one video. I'll be reading an article for the first time, never seeing it before, from a trustworthy news source. And I'm going to create a list of news sources that I deem as trustworthy. I know, but I'll explain my reasoning a little bit. Mainly I want things to be reputable, and I don't want to get the conspiracy series sites that pretend to be news, or the sites that pretend. And that's something you gotta be aware of in both reading news and history. Gotta make sure you're actually getting proper sources and you understand them. And so the series I want to create is going to be me looking at the news sources or a news article from a historical perspective. Not so much as a current event perspective, but a historical perspective. Won't be able to put everything into context because I won't have all the necessary sources to do so. But kind of just breaking it down, also maybe showing a bit of an English perspective and rhetoric. What is the reporter, the journalist trying to say in that article, which is actually very important to do when you are analyzing primary sources in history. So I hope to get that up as a series within a couple of weeks, maybe even tomorrow if I'm lucky. Probably not, but if I'm lucky. Because I really think that might be a good way to evaluate news sources in today's climate. Treat them like you would a primary source in history. You analyze them. It will be more work, but perhaps, just perhaps, it will help me and help you to be better informed. So, I think I might end my videos there, even though this video is intended to compare historians and journalists and how they're very similar, and they are, as I said. And in case you're wondering, in my thumbnail and background image, the two people I'm showing, of course, Walter Cronkite, because he's one of the most, one of the most reputable reporter and journalists in American history. Considered doing Pulitzer, but he hasn't had a stint with yellow journalism, so I held off. Because yellow journalism is but that's kind of what we still need to combat even today, and we gotta be aware of. And Pulitzer Prize is named after, but I wanted Klondike, that way I could show the clip of JFK's assassination, which, let me just tell you, even just reading about the Klondike's reporting on it made me choke up, just reading it. So yeah, and the other guy I'm showing is the German historian before Germany actually existed. Okay, I gotta make sure I get his name. Leopold von Ranke. Probably probably the father of modern history. You can do some research on him if you want, but he's important in how we conduct history nowadays. And the main thing, sources. Sources are always important in history and in journalism. Just keep that in mind. And that's why essentially that series I mentioned I want you to do. I want you to look at a source. What will someday be a primary source for historians looking at this current era we live in. I want you to look at it and break it down really and try to understand what that source is trying to say about what is happening, but I'm going to be doing it from a kind of a looking back perspective in the moment, if that makes any sense. So thank you for watching this video. I had intended to be more like 5 minutes, but here we are at nearly the 10-minute mark, so thank you for bearing with me. Please subscribe to my channel. I know I have not posted in a long time, but my New Year's resolution is to do better on this channel, uploading some smart intellectual content. And I'm thinking, analyzing one news source a day, one news article a day, just might be a way of doing that. And hopefully I'll get some other nice content on this channel as well. Well, thank you for watching, and as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. Have a good one.